Just give me 30 seconds. You ever hear about a place that doesn't quite add up? A town with a population of 1, a tavern open 6 days a week, a library with 5,000 books and one chair nobody sits in, and the story sticks in the back of your head for a week? That quiet thing that won't leave you alone. And then you look it up at midnight and realize the woman keeping the town legally alive is 91 years old and files the paperwork by hand in pencil every year because that's what state law requires. But here's what I stumbled onto. She's not the only one. Travelers from Japan, Brazil, Germany have signed her guest book, and there are 11 other Nebraska towns doing some quieter version of the same fight. If you love America's strange corners, subscribe. Actual drowned town, actual rhino barn, 12 towns. Let's get into it. Number 12, Gothenburg, population 3,008 as of the 2020 census. Dawson County. Sits right off I-80, about 3 hours west of Lincoln on the old Lincoln Highway corridor. Home prices on Zillow run $95,000 to $220. 0-0, essentially the same bands it's been in for a decade. And that flatness is the tell. Gothenburg's pitch for 100 years has been the Pony Express capital of Nebraska. 2 original 1860s relay stations are still standing, one in Emmon Park downtown, one out at the old Machette site. The lead cabin pulls between 30,000 and 40,000 visitors a year, per the foundation that runs it. That number sounds healthy. Here's where it gets honest. It hasn't grown in 15 years. The I-80 traveler stops at the chain hotel exit, not the historic downtown exit. Gothenburg's tourism economy isn't dying. It's slowly subtracting itself from the interstate, one closed storefront at a time. The Sun Theater holds on. The Runza holds on. The ethanol plant holds on. The grain warehouses near the rail line do not. The Pony Express cabin in Emmon Park is volunteer-run and free, April through October. On a slow Tuesday in August, you can walk inside and be the only person there. The wood smells like wood. There's a saddle on a rail. A teenager once made a 100-mile shift at full gallop out of a doorway that small. The silence in that cabin makes grown adults whisper without meaning to. That's the softest version of disappearing, when nobody decides to stop coming. They just start driving past. Number 11, Republican City. Picture a lake with 75 miles of shoreline and a town of 134 people sitting on it. That's not a typo. Republican City, Harlan County, 2020 census. Harlan County Lake is Nebraska's second largest at 13,250 surface acres. The dam finished in 1952. Home prices today, $45, 0 to $130,000. Through the 70s and 80s, this was a vacation magnet. Kansas families came up, Nebraska families came down. 3 motels, a couple of restaurants, the kind of bait shop that smelled like minnows and coffee. Then the 1986 farm crisis hit the surrounding valley. Drought drawdowns gutted the lake economy through the 90s and 2000s, and the next generation just didn't come back. So what's left is worth visiting. Patterson Harbor Marina is still running. The Corps of Engineers Visitor Center is open. The lake itself is still magnificent. But the plywood on Main Street outnumbers the open signs, and at least one motel has been sitting empty for 15 years. Here's the detail I can't shake. During drought drawdowns, the lake drops far enough that the foundations of pre-1952 farmsteads come back up. The Corps bought those farms before flooding the valley, bulldozed the houses, filled the basements, and when the water's low, people walk out across dry mud and stand in kitchens that haven't been kitchens since Truman was president. That happens every few years. Nobody advertises it. It's not in the brochure. It's just something the locals know. And they'll tell you if you stay long enough to ask. Number 10, Hardy. Here's the number first. 97 people at the 2020 census, down from 179 in 2000. That's a 46% loss in 20 years. Hardy, Nuckolls County, south-central Nebraska, about 35 miles from the Kansas line. Home prices, when they list it all, approximately $40,000 to $90,000. Median age in the village, 53 years old. That last number is the one the demographers watch. Hardy was platted in 1880 when the railroad extended south through the Republican River Valley. For a generation, it had a grain elevator, a church, a school. Then the elevator consolidated to a bigger town. Then the school district merged. Then the highway bypassed the main street by 2 miles, which is all it takes. What's left is a quiet residential pocket, houses that are maintained, not abandoned. But with that particular stillness you get when the people who built them are gone, and the people who inherited them aren't sure what to do next. I keep coming back to the age number. When your town's median age is 53 and there's no school left and no new employer on the horizon, you don't need to be a demographer to do that math. The people in Hardy aren't giving up. They're keeping their yards cut and their porches painted and their cars running. But 53 is a town that's already in the last quarter of the game, and the bench is thin. That's not a criticism. It's just the arithmetic of a place that got bypassed one too many times. Number 9, Verdel. Verdel, Knox County. 38 people at the 2020 census, up slightly from 30 in 2010. Yeah, it actually ticked up, which tells you something about how volatile these populations get when you're counting in the dozens. Founded circa 1902, when the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad reached that stretch of the Niobrara River bluffs. The name comes from the Spanish word for green, verde, and whoever named it wasn't wrong. The bluffs above the river are genuinely something. The logic of Verdel's decline is the standard northern Nebraska sequence. Railroad gone, school consolidated, young people follow the jobs east. What's different here is the geography. Verdel sits close enough to Niobrara State Park and the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail corridor that it gets occasional tourism spillover, but occasional doesn't keep a town alive. The 2024 median household income here was to estimate $1,406, which is roughly a third of the Nebraska state average. That's not a community in transition. That's a community that's been in the back half of the race for a long time. Here's what I noticed on satellite imagery. The street grid in Verdel is still there. Full blocks platted out, sidewalks on some of them, the bones of a real town. But more than half the lots are empty. Not overgrown with weeds, just empty, grass cut, space where a house used to stand. The town didn't collapse dramatically. It just slowly subtracted itself, one house at a time, lot by lot, until what's left is a grid with gaps in it. Like a sentence with most of the words taken out and only the punctuation remaining. Number 8, Royal, Antelope County. Population approximately 63. The town has fewer residents than there are visible skeletons in the barn 3, miles down the road. That barn is Ashfall Fossil Beds State Historical Park, a national natural landmark holding over 200 complete fossil skeletons of animals that died at a single watering hole 12 million years ago, suffocating in volcanic ash blown in from what's now Idaho, discovered in 1971. Open to the public in 1991. School groups, paleontology day trippers, the occasional retired couple, they drive in, they drive out. Almost nobody stops in Royal itself. Founded around 1900 on a now consolidated rail line, the 1980s restructuring pulled the steady jobs, and the population has been bleeding ever since. When houses do list, $30,000 to $90,000, and they don't move fast. The main attraction at Ashfall is a roofed enclosure called the Rhino Barn, built directly over the active dig. You walk a catwalk above the bones. Rhinos, three-toed horses, saber-toothed deer, mothers curled around calves lying exactly where they fell. Then you drive 3 minutes back to Royal, past the empty lots and the boarded houses, and try to do the math on what gets preserved and what doesn't. 12 million years of volcanic ash kept those animals intact, and the town above them couldn't hold 60 people through a single generation of farm consolidation. A town disappearing on top of a town that already did. The timescales are different. The result looks about the same. Number 7, Crawford, Dawes County. Population 840 as of 2020, down from a 1940s peak of around 400. 3 miles east of Fort Robinson State Park, Nebraska's largest, over 22,000 acres. Home prices, $60,000 to $180,000. Dawes County lost 119 people between 2020 and 2023 alone, one of the sharpest county-level drops in the state in that window. The fort was founded in 1874, decommissioned in 1948, became a state park in 1956. It housed cavalry, a wee German Piabu camp, and the largest canine training center in the country during the war. In 1996, Fort Robinson pulled 355,000 visitors in a single year. It hasn't been near that since. The Drifter Cook Shack still serves. The old Main Street Inn is still standing. Hunters come through. A thin line of Colorado retirees buys in. But the highway frontage motels are empty, and the school enrollment is the conversation at every coffee table in town. There's a fact that doesn't make it into most of the Fort Robinson literature. Crazy Horse was bayoneted in the adjutant's office there and died on the floor that night. The building is gone. The foundation is marked. Several of his descendants drive up from Pine Ridge every September on the anniversary quietly. Knows them by name. Most school groups never hear that part. Crawford carries that weight. The history is layered in ways that the tourism numbers don't capture. And the town's shrinking just the same. Number 6, Red Cloud. Webster County peaked at 13,956 people in 1910. It's now under 3,400. Every single census since 1910 has been a loss. Everyone. That's the number. Now, here's the town. Red Cloud, population 9,991 in 2020. Willa Cather's hometown. The model for the prairie of my Antonia. Oh, pioneers. The entire imaginative landscape she spent a lifetime mining. The town has fought back harder than almost anywhere on this list. The National Willa Cather Center opened in 2017 on a $7 million capital campaign, built specifically to make Red Cloud a literary pilgrimage destination. And it works. Tourists come from London, Tokyo, Berlin. The 1885 Cather Childhood Home is restored. The Red Cloud Opera House operates. Cafes open and close and open again. Restored Victorians list for $180,000 to $275,000. Everything else runs $45,000 to $140,000. But drive 10 minutes in any direction and you're on the actual Cather landscape. And a lot of those farmsteads are abandoned. The view from the main street is preserved Victorian storefronts, lived in and unlived in on the same block, while the blue stem prairie she walked runs unbroken for 30 miles south. Cather wrote that the world broke in two in 1922 or thereabouts. You stand on Red Cloud's main street now and you understand what she meant. Not as a literary observation, but as a physical one. The town is preserving the evidence of an America that is otherwise leaving without her. That's a hell of a job for 991 people. Number 5, Alliance. 80,000 visitors a year, 39 vintage American cars. One full-scale Stonehenge replica built out of half-buried Cadillacs in a pasture 5 miles north of town. 1987. Jim Reinders built it as a memorial to his father. Alliance, Box Butte County, population 8,164 as of 2020, down from a 1990 peak of 9,920. Home price is $70,000 to $200,000. That's Carhenge, and yes, it's exactly as strange and wonderful as it sounds. The town behind it, though. Alliance was founded in 1888 as a Burlington Railroad division point. Crews changed here, locomotives got serviced here. The railroad bankrolled the entire place. Then through the 1990s and 2000s, Burlington Northern restructured and cut the rail workforce significantly. The Panhandle Ag economy bled out in parallel. The Nebraska state demographer classifies the whole region as persistent depopulation. The downtown still functions. The hospital still operates. The BNSF yard is still there, just leaner. But a cluster of highway frontage motels and houses near the old rail district sit boarded. Alliance is big enough that it doesn't feel like it's disappearing. Until you look at the census line, 15 years running in one direction. Carhenge is free, year-round, no gate, no ticket booth, no staff after about 4 in the afternoon. You can pull off Highway 87 at 2 in the morning and walk inside a ring of half-buried 62 Cadillacs, while coyotes call across the buttes. On an average summer day, maybe 200 or 300 people show up. Most of the time, it's completely alone with the wind. The most photographed weird Americana monument in Nebraska, and most days, nobody's there. Something about that feels exactly right for this list. Number 4, Valentine. Cherry County is 6,148 square miles, larger than Connecticut, with roughly 5,500 total residents. It works out to less than 1 person per square mile. The county seat is Valentine, population 2,633 in 2020, down from a 1960s peak around 3,000. Home prices in town, $80,000 to $220,000. Valentine is the gateway to the Niobrara National Scenic River, congressionally designated in 1991, which has pulled roughly 40,000 floaters per peak summer through a dozen-plus outfitters. Smith Falls State Park sits 12 miles east with Nebraska's tallest waterfall. Fort Niobrara National Wildlife Refuge holds bison and elk. On paper, this looks like a thriving destination. In practice, Valentine has lost residents in every census since 1980, and the outfitters quietly admit the next generation isn't booking river trips the way their parents did. Tourism is 3 months on, 9 months of wind. The economy is real but seasonal and aging. That's a combination that doesn't get more stable over time. Here's the detail that stayed with me. There are 230 documented waterfalls along the scenic stretch of the Niobrara. Most of them have no name. You can drift past one in a tube on a Saturday afternoon and never know it's there. A 70-foot ribbon of water pouring through a crack in the canyon. Wall out of a spring no engineer ever touched. The third and fourth generation outfitters running these trips will tell you off the record. This whole tradition may not survive another 20 years. Their kids are in Lincoln. Their grandkids are in Denver. 230 waterfalls. Unnamed in a county with fewer people than in a single apartment complex, slowly losing the people who know where to find them. Number 3. Niobrara. The town has been physically relocated twice to escape water. That's the headline. Sit with that for a second before the numbers. Niobrara, Knox County. Population 324 as of 2020, peaked at 775 in 1940. Founded in 1856, one of the earliest white settlements in Nebraska. Home prices, $45,000 to $135,000. Original site sat at the confluence of the Niobrara and Missouri rivers. An 1881 ice jam catastrophe destroyed it. They moved the town. Second site lasted until the late 1970s, when Gavin's Point Dam, completed in 1957, raised the regional water table enough that the second town site began drowning from below. Saturated foundations, sinking basements, mold that wouldn't dry. Across the 1970s, residents picked the whole place up and moved it again to higher ground. The current Niobrara is version 3. Niobrara State Park sits adjacent, 1,632 acres, cabins, a swimming pool, bluff views of the two rivers meeting. Two Rivers Saloon, a market, a Catholic church, the Santee Sioux Reservation immediately to the south. It functions. It's alive. But stand on the bluff in the state park at sunset and look down at the confluence. You are looking at the third location of a town the rivers have tried to erase for 170 years. The first one's underwater. The second one's a flooded ghost lot. You can find the street grid in satellite imagery if you know where to look. The third one is 324 people. One saloon, one church, one swimming pool, and the clear understanding that the rivers don't give up. They're just patient. Number 2, Lemoyne. Relocated village population, roughly 15 to 30 people. Original town site at the bottom of Lake Monowi. Nebraska's #1 vacation destination by attendance, drawing over 1 million visitor days per year. Lake surface, 35,700 acres at full pool. Capacity has been running significantly below full pool in recent years. Check the Central Nebraska Public Power District the week you film this, because that number moves. Original Lemoyne was platted in 1887 as a Union Pacific stop on the North Platte River. In the late 1930s, Central Nebraska Public Power acquired the entire town site to build Kingsley Dam. Completed in 1941, at the time the second largest hydraulic fill dam in the world. Homes, school, store, cemetery, flooded on purpose. Residents who didn't relocate had their houses condemned. The new Lemoyne built up the road, never grew past a bar, a marina, and a handful of cabins. Today the lake real estate around it is a Colorado refugee market. Cabins $120,000 to $400,000. Lakefront $200,000 to $700. 00 plus. The relocated village itself barely has a postal route. And then this. During the 2004 drought, the lake dropped far enough that the original Lemoyne came back up out of the lake bed. Foundations, sidewalks, the outline of Main Street. Photographs from that summer show families standing in the doorway of a house their grandparents lived in 1939. Dry, cracked mud underfoot, sun on stone that hadn't seen sun in 63 years. Then the rains came back. The town went under again. It's been waiting down there ever since. A whole town on the lakebed, patient, waiting for the next drought. Number 1, Monowi, Boyd County, northeast Nebraska, 6 miles from the South Dakota line. Population 1. The lowest population incorporated municipality in the United States. That one resident is Elsie Eiler, 91 years old, and she is the town's mayor, treasurer, librarian, and bartender. All four, all at once, every day. The town was founded in 1902 when the Chicago-St. Paul, Minneapolis, and Omaha Railway pushed through Boyd County. It peaked around 150 people in the 1930s. The dust took the surrounding farms. Rail consolidation closed the line. The young people went to Omaha, to Sioux Falls, to anywhere with electricity bills and a paycheck. By 2000, Monowi was down to Elsie and her husband Rudy. Rudy died in 2004. Elsie has held the village alone for over 20 years. Here is what holding a village alone actually looks like. Nebraska state law requires every incorporated municipality to file an annual road plan and budget. Elsie files Monowi's by hand, in pencil, every year, because she is legally the mayor and the village board and the entire voting population. She has to hold a meeting with herself, approve the budget she wrote, and submit it to the state. The day she stops, the town legally ceases to exist. There's no ambiguity in that sentence. One signature. That's the distance between a place existing and a place ending. The Monowi Tavern is open 6 days a week. $6 burgers. A guest book signed by travelers from Japan, Germany, Brazil, the UK, Australia, every US state. Across the gravel lot sits Rudy's library, a small one-room building Elsie built herself to house her late husband's 5,000-book collection. It's free. No one staffs it. The books are arranged the way Rudy arranged them. There's a chair next to the wood stove that nobody sits in. That's the chair I keep thinking about. Not a museum piece, not a memorial, just a chair where a man used to sit, kept exactly where he kept it, by the only person who would know. Asked once why she still files the paperwork, Elsie said she promised Rudy she'd keep the town going as long as she could. She gives a version of that answer every time someone asks. Different words, same shape. Surrounding Boyd County farmland trades at $2,000 to $5,000 an acre. The nearest livable houses in Lynch or Spencer run $30,000 to $90,000. The real estate market in Monowi itself is the bar. There is a single overhead light in that tavern, on a chain, that has been switched on at 4 in the afternoon and off near midnight for over 20 years. When that light goes out for good, a town that has been on the map of the United States since 1902 will quietly fall off it. And the pencil that filed the last paperwork will be in a drawer somewhere, still sharp. That's the 12. Do me a favor. Drop the name of the one that stayed with you in the comments. I read every single one. If you've actually been to any of these, especially Lemoyne when the water was down, or Monowi on a weekday afternoon, tell that story. Somebody on this channel needs to hear it. Send this to the one person in your life who collects backroad towns the way other people collect records. They'll watch the whole thing.